Welcome. This is a practice to learn crow pose. We're going to start first, though, just sitting down. Most important is honor the wrists and take your time when you are learning crow pose. You're going to have to build up the strength for your wrists. So one of the simplest ways just to get the wrists warmed up is to do some wrist circles. You can go one way or the other way. Crow pose is essentially just like handstand. You're putting all of your weight into your hands. So it's the back of the wrists that take a lot of the brunt. So before we begin, let's stretch out the back of the wrists. Turn your palms in front of you, cross your thumbs in front of your palms, and wrap your fingers over your thumbs just like that. Lift your elbows high, move your elbows in, and then push your knuckles forward one, then the other. And then you can drop your lower lip a little bit and add some sound effects like just like that. And now hold and squeeze for 3, 2, 1. Release. And one more time. Hold and squeeze for 3, 2, and 1. Now, position yourself in all fours, hands and knees. Here in all fours, on an exhale, round your spine, tuck your chin in, move your tailbone down, actively push your hands down as firm into the floor as you can, straightening your arms. Keep your chin tucked in, tailbone down, feel the strength tone through your front body. This in general is the shape of the spine for crow pose, Bakasana, where you have a rounded shape position. Keep pushing down, squeeze your abs in. And on your next inhale, just drop the belly down. Move your knees back, tuck your toes under, and lift up into downward facing dog position. Here in downward facing dog, bend your knees slightly and tilt your sit bones up into the air. Push your hands forward as you push your legs straighter. On an inhale, lift your right leg back behind you. And then as you exhale, pull your knee in towards your nose and pause and hold just for an uncomfortable period of time. And then lift your leg back behind you again. And one more time, pull your knee in, pause and hold around your back. And then use this to step your foot forward, lower your back knee down, getting into the hips here for lizard pose. Move your right hand to the inside of your right leg and then pause on fingertips. If you're a little bit more flexible, you can start to sink down a little lower and maybe drop your elbows down all the way to the ground. So stage 1 here in lizard is just a bit more of a classic stage, having the back knee and front foot separated. I like to just move the body forward and back to get into the hips. Now, creating a modified one that really helps with crow pose, position your front foot, move it back to the left knee here, and then hook your front shin with your right elbow. From there, pull back with the elbow as you sink down, just to get an extra stretch for that right hip. And essentially positioning the shin up on your upper arm just as you would for crow pose. Okay, and then put your hands back as you would for downward facing dog and press back to downward facing dog. Surprise, surprise. Who knew that was coming? On an inhale now, lift your left leg back behind you. Push the hands forward. Reach back with your foot. As you exhale, pull your knee in. Push down with your hands around your back. And then swing your leg back. One more time, pull your knee in. Pause to hold, and step your foot forward, lower your back knee down, move your hands off to the right. And if I get my elbows down, I usually go a bit further out to the right to drop the elbows down. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Just because you can doesn't always mean you should. Just words of wisdom to live by. Moving your hips again forward and back. And then just changing the position for this one, pull your front foot to the back knee, so heel to knee, and then hook the front shin with your upper left arm. Exactly the same thing, just a little bit different as you bow in, maintaining that hook, pushing arm into leg and leg into arm. Okay, and then position your hands back for downward facing dog position. Move forward to plank pose now, and these two poses are a true measure. If you can hold plank pose for maybe 20-30 seconds, you probably can do crow pose as well. You just may not have the balance yet. Even more is the low push-up position, chaturanga. So we'll try chaturanga two different ways. One is the crash landing. So do your best. If you need to have your knees down, bring your knees down, but lower down halfway, pause and hold. If you can hold this for 5 to 10 seconds, crow should come fairly natural for you. And then lower all the way down. Point your toes, push the hands down, rise up for a cobra position, just to even out a lot of the forward folds we're doing for this practice. And then lower back down. The other way to do chaturanga is from the ground up. This one's great because less risk of falling down. So tuck your toes under, lift your knees, lift your thighs, position your elbows over your wrists and lift your shoulders as high as your elbows, and then push with your hands and try to lift up 5 centimeters. It's hard, just try. And then push all the way up. And again, press back to downward facing dog. Slowly step forward a little bit towards your hands. Have your feet about hip distance apart. Bend your knees and then float your arms forward into chair pose. Here in chair, you can interlace your fingers and turn your palms forward just again to stretch out the wrists. I have little finger cracks as well. So one way to learn crow pose is to actually just attempt crow pose. So now hinge forward, touch your hands down, lift your heels, open your knees out, bend your elbows, and put your shins to your upper arms. Just put 60-70% of the weight into your hands. Notice that you really have to grip and claw down with your fingertips. And just lean forward, put your weight back to your feet. Lean forward, put your weight back. Of course, if you know and you can lift up, lift up. If you're just learning, lift one foot, lower it. Lift the other foot, lower it. We're just working to build those skills that will allow us to get into the pose. From here now, just put your hands in front of you and then sit down all the way onto your butt. A big part of crow pose is the core strength. Hold the backs of your thighs, lift your chest, bend your elbows out to the sides, look forward. If you want to do this without any support, you can reach your arms forward. And then if you've got a lot of power, you're welcome to work your legs straighter. Okay, adding to the core strength and just the overall upper body strength, cross your ankles, bring your feet down to the ground, place your hands beside your hips, push down to lift your butt up, then lift your front foot, and I won't be mean and make you lift the other foot. Lower your butt down, straighten your legs out in front of you. This next one is called half boat. It's interesting because I think it's doubly difficult, so it's a little bit of an inverse. Now, cup the back of your head, point your elbows forward, tuck your chin in, and start to lean back. Lean back just far enough that you lift your heels away from the floor, just far enough that it feels like you're out in freezing temperature, outside, windy, and you're shivering. Teeth are chattering. Oh my goodness, this is tough. For 3, 2, and 1, and lower all the way down. Lying on your back, squeeze your knees into you, give yourself a bear hug. And essentially crow pose is this position where you're squeezed in to get a little bit more flexibility. Pull the knees in towards your armpits and then hold on to the outsides of your feet for happy baby pose. So happy baby pose is a resistance position where you pull with the hands and push up with the feet. Yoga often gets a bad reputation for not having any pulling postures or pulling exercises. And whenever one of my friends at the gym says that to me, I just go into happy baby. And it's like, see, there's pulling here. Now, creating the shape of crow pose on your back. So join the inner edges of your feet together. Have the elbows bent out to the side slightly, and then put your elbows to the inside of your knees. Place your palms face up like you're a mime in a box. So mime in a box, mime in a box, mime in a box, mime in a box. And then squeeze your knees into your elbows, but your elbows say no and resist back. And you squeeze in, but the elbows go, no, I will not let you pass. And then push your arms straight, squeeze your feet in, push, push, push. Feel how the abs act as the neutralizer, the mediator here, holding strong. 3, 2, 1. And then bring your knees together, hold the backs of your thighs, rock yourself up to sit. Here, just in a basic seated position, slide your right leg straight forward, pull your left foot back. This one's called Marichyasana A. I'm not the most flexible on this one, so I actually will use the leverage of maybe bending the front knee. So having the left knee bent, foot flat and knee up. And then place the right hand behind, reach the left arm up, even lean forward to grab hold of the foot to bring me in further. From there, I'll just literally hook the shin with the left elbow. And if you're a little bit more flexible, you could reach around for a bind, but I'm usually happy just to stay where I am. So something I've learned, found my limits, and I stay within them. Okay, and then switch to the other side. So left leg forward, pull the right leg back, left hand behind, lift the butt up as leverage to get in a little lower, and then pull in, hook the shin, and then from there bow in, squeezing the knee in towards the midline. Okay, and then come up, just swing the legs off to the side and come back into the all fours position. Point your toes, sit back to your heels. This one is just testing the strength. You don't have to lift up all the way, but I promise you if you do this every single day for maybe just 20-30 seconds, you will get strong and crow will come easy to you. So it's low loss and a prep, earring prep, pendant prep, however you want to name the pose. You can also just name it really hard. Having the hands down, push down, lift your bum with the toes pointed, push through the tops of your feet and lift your knees up and hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lower down. No one said it was going to be easy. I didn't. Hold. There's still more. Same thing. Lean forward, lift your bum. Push through your feet, lift your knees, hold. This time, lift one heel in towards your butt, hold, hold. Lower your foot, lift the other foot, hold, hold, and then lower down. Whew. So one of the most frightening aspects of crow pose is falling on your face. And I just speak to that because when I first tried crow in a yoga class situation, I looked around and everyone else could do it, so I therefore thought I could do it. I tried, I fell on my face. I ended up starting to use my couch of all things, this is years and years ago, to lean my head into. And if you're in a yoga studio, of course you can have props and blocks to use that. So it's essentially just creating a hybrid tripod headstand where your head isn't actually on the ground, it's on a prop. And then you lift up with your head to get into crow pose. So I'll show it here. So it's just position yourself, have your feet near each other, hook your shins with your upper arms, and then lean forward till you bring your head to the prop block. Could be a pillow, could be a couch, and then lift one foot, lift another foot, and then pause to hold here. So try not to put too much weight into the head. It's not meant to be headstand. It's just there to help guide you to the point where you take the risk of falling on your face out, which is a good fear to have. I think anyone who lacks the fear of falling on their face probably is missing something. So now to then go into crow pose, you just squeeze the fingers down and then begin to lift your head away from that prop or block. Hold for 3, 2, and 1, and then lower your feet down. Maybe come all the way up to stand, give your legs and arms a shake out. Woo! We did it, that's one variation. A pretty classic variation at the yoga studio as well is going into Malasana. So that's where you're going into a deep squat position. So more classically, that could be done with the feet wide apart like this. It's just a little bit easier to get into the squat position. So if you are going feet wide, there is kind of a transition when you do put your hands down to bring the feet closer in towards each other. Then lean forward and lift your feet up. So starting with bent elbows, squeeze the knees in, begin to push your arms straighter. I find I can't get too high up into this pose from this variation. I actually have to go into a deeper squat position. So we'll call this one Bakasana crow pose, but there is a pose called crane where it eventually becomes straight arms and you pull the knees right up into the armpits. And I'll even see some students of mine float up into handstand with that one. Yeah, crow might not be for you today. You could also just sit on a block and essentially replicate the squat position Malasana. And really it's just about pushing the knees out with the elbows, but then squeezing the knees in against the elbows. Okay, final version, working towards the straight arms. You gotta psych yourself out for this one. So come up to stand. If you can, try to have your feet as close as possible to go into a squat position. I can now do that, feet together. It does help to have the knees go out to the side as you lower down. So feet are together. I do need to counterbalance with the arms forward like that. In order for me to have the leverage to bow in though, I do have to lift the heels a little bit. And then from there I can round in, maybe holding the heels, stepping on my own hands with the heels to round. And what this does is it gets the shins high up in the upper arms to the point where it actually kind of feels like they can get a little bit locked. So you just have to be careful and mindful as you try this the first few times. So it looks similar to the previous crow position from straight up squat, but it does feel a little different. So then leaning forward and then lifting. And this position is where I can pull the heels in, pull the knees in and up into the armpits, and push the arms straighter. Woo! I am working hard on this one for 3, 2, and 1. Lower your feet down, sit back onto your heels. Finishing as we began. Palms forward, thumbs across your palms. Wrap your fingers, hug your elbows in, lift your elbows up, move your knuckles forward, drop your lip. Stretch out the wrists. Remember, it's a process, it's a journey. Just keep practicing, building the strength. The amazing thing about crow is I see people accomplish it for the first time in class. It really is the first arm balance that a lot of people can do. And in fact, it's actually one that takes a lot more effort than some of the other arm balances. So once you got it, your practice is taking off. Thanks so much. Namaste.